Which I hate to keep you here longer. I know the feeling. I just wanted to address just this kind of crises that we have in the city. I want Dr. Wells, can you pass out? Ken, can she give you this so you could pass to each one of the council people? It's extremely important for us, and in light of everything that's been going on with the letter I sent, with the letter that I think the councilman organized, that you guys sent, I think we need to have a discussion about how severe. I don't think we understand the severity of where we are. I think that we've been getting a lot of sound bites from individuals here and there. You know, some of us support individuals. We believe certain things. I understand that, and some people support us, and we got to say specific things. But we have to be clear that this is pending doom. And I'm not saying it simply to scare people. I'm saying it because I've had real conversations with the superintendent, with folks in the district, and conversations with folks on the charter side as well who know how serious our situation is. But unfortunately, everybody does not have the courage nor the integrity to say publicly what their issues are, but ultimately, we have to deal with them as leadership in the city, and I'm going to lay that out to you just very clearly and very short about what the issues are. And somebody said that I've never spoken to you about how severe this is, and I need to make this clear to you as much as I possibly can. First of all, Newark has the greatest percentage of charters than any other city in the state of New Jersey, right? We have about a little over 30-something% of our kids are in charter schools, which means that about 70% of our kids are still, 70, which is a overwhelmingly huge number, 70% of our kids are still in Newark Public Schools, still, today, right? We serve twice as many special needs children than the charters do, twice as many, and 10 times as many English language learners, 10 times as many. They only serve 1% of English language learners. As a matter of fact, in certain parts of the city, in the north and the east ward, the students are trending back to Newark Public Schools. That means that most of the entire charter growth is being fueled by kids that are coming from the south and the west wards primarily. It's growing and growing, and most of that, there's a lot of reasons behind that. Stronger schools, stabler communities, new schools being built, pushing people back to Newark Public Schools in those areas. So in the areas that don't have that, obviously where schools have been closed and other issues are going on, there's a trend going in the other direction. What concerns me, well, even before I get to that, I just want to show you, and it should be in there, the rate of, so if you look at the special education rate, you see that they start here in charter school and they begin to go down. And the same thing with those it's number 7 in your book, and the same with people with free lunch or kids that are free and reduced lunch. It starts high and it begins to go down low as the years go from one year to the next, meaning that kids are going back to public school who are special needs. Kids are going back to traditional public school who are receive free and reduced lunch. That's important, and I'm going to tell you why it's important. And I'm not saying this to create an atmosphere of traditional versus charter, because we don't benefit from that, and neither does the charter community, by the way. They don't benefit from it either. Those who are smart enough to understand the dynamics of this city, they don't benefit from this whole perception of traditional versus charter, and we should not fall into that same trick bag that people are trying to put us in terms of traditional versus charter. Our job is to make sure that all of our kids in every school have an opportunity that's equal. 70%, and I'm just keep saying that number, right? So you should get the Education Law Center's report about the fiscal crisis in Newark Public Schools. When the superintendent first came here, there was at least a $70 million budget deficit. There'll probably be the same next year. the state has flat funded Newark Public Schools, which means that it gets the same amount of money every year, regardless of inflation, regardless of enrollment. There are more kids in Newark Public Schools this year than were last year, so we didn't get extra money for those kids who came into our district, whether they be district kids or charter kids. We didn't get any extra money. We were flat funded, so as we know, we deal with budgets in the city of Newark. As inflation and healthcare costs and all those things increase, if you don't get any revenue over a certain amount of years, you actually have less money than you had the year before. The state refused to fund, I'm just going to say Abbott, refused to fund Abbott. They didn't give us the money that we deserve or need, and so we've been flat funded. As a result of that, we have less resources for kids. Plus, they've also forced the district to not just hold charters harmless, meaning pay them anyway. They asked us to pay them an additional $20 million or so dollars. So that actually hurt the district even more. As a result of that, there was a 35% cut, $1,610 per pupil in all of the monies that were given to Newark Public School kids. 20% reduction in media services, library attendance, social work, and guidance. There was the same kind of reduction in English language learner categories, as well as special needs categories, including school psychologists, instructional support staff, significant reductions in all of those areas. So if we have more kids that we have to deal with in terms of special needs and ELL, and we don't have any teachers' aides, we have less money for special needs, less money for ELL kids, it puts them in a devastating position. Now, if the district gets another $70 million deficit next year, that would be like if I walked in here with a $93 million hole and then have been asked by the state to pay an additional $20 million to somewhere else, we won't be able to provide any services. So if the district has another $70 million hole next year, and more than likely it will, and the state flat funds it, and charters increase as we go, which means we pay more money, you are putting the district in a situation where it'll be completely decimated, right? And I make the analogy, and I made the analogy of a person being tied up to a train track, and a train is coming. And there's two things that we need to do. We need to get the person off the train track, right? And we need to try to get them off the train track as fast as we can. And if I'm the one getting the person off the train track, I'm going to say, please slow down the train so I can get this person off of the track. It would be great if you stopped and let me get this person off the track first. But if you don't want to do that because you're interested in getting where you got to go faster than I can get this person off the track, which may mean I may die, then that's something, theoretically that you have to deal with, but unfortunately it affects me. So what we've asked is them to slow down, and in some instances stop until we get this person off of the track. And the person we're responsible for is the 70%, even if it's 60%, even if the number lessens to 60%, we're still responsible for, guess what? The overwhelming majority of families and children in the city of Newark will always be in public school, regardless of people's theoretical or ideological stance, regardless, which means we are responsible for them. Doesn't mean that we hate charters, we want charters to go away, we want to blow up the charter schools. There's not groups of people coming down here at these meetings or the zoning board meetings saying no charters, no charters, no. That's not happening. That's a lie. That's a fictitious thing that's been created. That's not happening. What is happening is that there's alarm in the Education Law Center. The superintendent has alarm. The mayor has alarm. The commissioner has alarm. And whether you know it or not, some folks in the charter community understand the same alarm. But what they're saying is that the district should be fully funded by the state. I agree with that. But which one of them have said that? Which one of us have said that? Who has said that the district should be fully funded by the state? Who has said that the state should pay the district the full Abbott money? The whatever they came up with, the new formula, the SFRA formula they came up with, when they're going to fund us fully. They know that they should fund us fully. Ask Ryan Hill, he knows it.
Yes, sir.
Ask the superintendent, knows it. All these people know it. They know it, they should fund us. They won't say it, but guess who's responsible for saying it? Us. We're responsible for it. So we should say you have to fully fund this stuff, or you're going to kill our kids who are in these schools who are going to be struggling, 60% of them. And a lot of those kids are going to be English language learners, which means they're going to be people from where we get kids from: Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the West Africa, India, Portugal, Brazil. These are the kids that are going to be affected by that. Those are the kids, 10 times more than charter schools. Those are the kids that are going to be affected by that. And all of the special needs kids who we know are overwhelmingly African American males. So we have an obligation to ask the state to fund us fully, and we have an obligation to hold those other people accountable and say, listen, we can't continue to just dole out money to you at the expense of the majority of the kids in the district. It can't happen. Somebody has to have the courage to say, look, I don't care what you say or whose side this, I'm not on that. But the reality of the matter is we cannot allow the train to roll over the body tied up on a trestle. We can't do it. And I gave you a full document so you can see it yourself, what I'm talking about. I handed it out to all of you. You should have it. And if you could get the Education Law Center's budget impacts of underfunding and rapid charter growth, is real. And it has nothing to do with what schools are better and who should go where. Because really, I don't care. My job is to make sure wherever you go is a good school. What I do care about is the resources that are left in a school that cannot perform at optimum levels because they don't have what they need to be able to do that. The state knows this as well. So if they flat fund us next year, scenario, they flat fund us next year, we have a $70 million hole. Chris Surf has to fill that hole in. And you know, just as I know, as electeds, how we fill in holes, right? And on top of that, he has to give the regular money to charters that are here, plus whatever money the state mandates that they give. And then if other charters say they're going to expand and not care about where we are, that's more money that we have to give out. What happens? Where do you get the $70 million, which could possibly turn into $80, $90 million? So where do they get that money from? They're not like us. They can't, sell things or do this and find ways to, we could do a tax sale. We could do all kinds of other things. We could do something in terms of health care and all kinds of things. We go to the local finance board, get money from the local finance board. We could do all types of stuff. You know what they have to do? Lay teachers off. They have to cut programs, library, media, special ed, English language learners. I'm a principal. Those are the people who go first. Then sports, then basketball, then football, then baseball, then band. They go next. Then all the other non-essential, quote-unquote, subject matters that you might need. Biology, physics. Then it goes down to English and math until you get $90 million. That's what has to happen. District office people get cut downtown. Decimate that whole thing. And I think that the superintendent is, given the circumstances in terms of his cutting, he has spared a lot of the places this year. A lot of the fallout that could have happened did not happen. But I know, as the mayor of this town, dealing with the same problem that he's dealing with, he can't do that 2 years in a row. I bragged about not being able to raise taxes the first year when we walked in this door. Guess what happened in 2015? Guess what happened? People's taxes got raised. That's what happened. I raised people's taxes. Why? I had no choice.
All right.
And I'm struggling with the state to get money from PSE&G. We got ability to do that. The district doesn't. They just don't have no ability to talk to PSE&G and get $20-something million to plug a hole in their budget. They're going to take money from them kids. That's just real. It's as real as it gets. And I don't care about none of the people who got all this money that's somewhere sending in letters, putting out stuff, emailing, trying to create a problem where parents are fighting each other. Because I'm going to tell you another secret, right? Even though the majority of our kids are still in public school, I'm going to tell you another secret. All of these kids, these parents whose kids are in charter school, got kids in public school, traditional public school too. So they can't win. There's no win for them. There's no win for them. Yeah, it is no win. I got friends whose kids, whose babies are in charters at Gray Academy or New Horizon or even some of the KIPP schools, but they're older kids. They go to university, they go to science, and don't think that those schools are not being affected by this. So the whole lie that when you take money from bad schools and give it to a good charter school, that's not how this thing works. The whole district is affected. So the funding formula says 10% of the money is going to stay in the district to deal with administrative costs, and 90% of it is going to go with the child. What they did not figure out is what would happen if all of that happened simultaneously. If we did it 20 schools, 10 schools, 15 schools at a time. Call a superintendent in here. Ask him. Have a private meeting with him. I beg you, take the cameras off. Do it everything. Call him in here, have a private meeting with him and other folks and Valerie Wilson and everybody else, and talk to them about how that everybody in the state miscalculated the fact that the district would remain whole if they took 90% of the dollars and left 10%. The 10% has not been sufficient enough to hold the district harmless with the 90% of the dollars that are leaving. It's not been sufficient, specifically if they do it at the same time. If there's a tsunami of kids moving out of the district, what's going to happen to the district in a scenario such as that? Talk to them. So take away Channel 7, Channel 12, the news, and have an honest conversation with people. And the great thing about what I've been able to do is have these honest conversations with people about what's going on. Now, I could do what they do. I could say nothing and sit in my office and don't get involved like some elected officials tell me to do. Don't get involved in that. Don't be a part of that, right? I can keep my mouth shut. I don't have nothing to do with the schools. The mayor has no jurisdiction over the schools whatsoever. Why am I even opening up my mouth about it? Because my conscience says that if I sit in my office and be quiet and watch 60 to 70% of my kids suffer continuously, it's going to be a problem in our city. And it turns into crime, it turns into unemployment, it turns to all kinds of other issues. And I don't mean to be here all day, but I'm passionate about it. Councilwoman, I'm sorry.
Mayor, the report that you have, can we get a copy of that today?
Yeah.
And what else?
You can't have mine. I wrote all over it. So Dr. Wells will bring it to your offices so your folks could get it.
In addition to that, when you say that the state will not fully fund us, what can we do as a council to get with you to demand or push for the full funding of the entire Newark school system?
So the superintendent and I right now are trying to formulate a strategy to go to the state and ask for money. I think that outside of that, you should be saying stuff like the letter we sent to Hesby. We need to send a letter to the governor. You need to send a letter to the state legislatures, because those are the people who make those decisions, to say that there is no way that we can operate the way we're operating without the full funding, or at least more funding. I would ask for full funding because I'm sure they're not going to give it to us, but they'll give us something. And it's important for us to make the demand and the ask as the leadership of this town, because there's no way fiscal crisis is real. It's not like a fictitious thing that we created. It's very real.
And Madam President,
yes,
just one other thing. Can we, as a council, as a whole, have Mr. Cerf come before us and have a frank and open dialogue in regards to what's going on, as well as their accountant? I know I don't see here on this, but I do know that there is an issue with the legacy funding. When we had schools that were depopulated, the funding still has to stay the same. and that is also adding to the budget deficit. So could we ask Mr. Amorosa and them to come in and discuss this with us in totality?
You guys know Henry Amoroso, so he's the one doing the work over there.
Yes.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Yeah, and I just want to remind this council that we do have an education committee that unfortunately hasn't met in the last year or so. So I would ask through the chair that committee become activated, and we have an opportunity to bring in the superintendent. And, you know, we all understand the fiscal crisis that the district faces, and I don't think there's one person up here that's not supportive of our public schools here in the city of Newark and would want to see our schools get fully funded. The reality of that is a different story as to whether or not, you know, between the governor's office and the legislature, they could reach an agreement to fully fund our schools. But, you know, our advocacy is needed, and I agree with that. And we need to pull in, you know, all your stakeholders, elected officials, community leaders, to better understand the severity of the district's financial crisis and get behind the concept of fully funding, while at the same time setting realistic expectations as to whether or not this could happen. But I believe the advocacy is important.
We definitely can't be flat funded. That can't happen. That
If I
can't
can just ask one more
We
question?
would, they can't raise taxes, so.
Mayor, what was their explanation as to the 1,600 some odd dollar deduction per student?
Well, you get more students, and as the inflationary costs take hold of the year, and you have the same amount of money as you did last year, you have less money, right? So it's just regular economics. If the dollar, you know, is worth less the next year, it's like people who don't get raises. When the cost of living increases and the amount of money you have stays the same, the dollar is worth less. That's basically what's happening there. So if they keep getting the same amount of money and the costs keep rising and they have to keep giving money out, then the kids that are there are going to get less money per pupil, right? And they don't, so they're estimating they have about 4,000 or so extra kids. Where they at, they don't know. But at the end of the day, it is creating another kind of a problem. So it's not just all the charter school thing, but they contribute a great deal to the situation that we're in, right? So if the state is not going to give us any money and those guys are not going to slow down, then we're asking for problems. You know, so we really, you know what, the Education Law Center, they gave us suggestions. And the suggestions affect us too. It says, restore state formula aid to MPS to full SFRA funding, which is Abbott. Increase the city of Newark's local contribution, utilizing waivers of the 2% annual property tax cap. So they're saying that we as Newark should contribute more to the Newark Public Schools. Temporarily halt expansion of enrollment in existing Newark charters, they say that. Reduce district payments to the charters and end the authorization in the state budget of additional payments. So those are things that it includes all of us, right? So those are their recommendations. I might not agree with each one of them, or, you know, ultimately I can't say I disagree with it, but it's going to hurt us too. Mm-hmm. If we did everything that the Education Law Center asked us to do, it's going to hurt everybody. Because that means taxpayers are going to be affected in Newark by this as well. This affects our taxes too. It just doesn't affect which school your kid gets to go to. We pay for this. That's what this gentleman is here talking about too, you know. The reality is when you get a tax abatement, the county gets less money, and so that affects suburban folks in this county who may be upset that we getting tax abatements here in this city. So taxes is serious. So at the end of the day, you know, the residents are going to have to foot this bill because the state is not going to want to do it. You know, the state don't want to pay money for Newark kids to have a decent education. They don't want to do it. You know why? Because there's towns that are not like ours who are going to be lobbying against us getting the money that we deserve, just same way we are lobbying for it. That's what I mean.
So Mayor, you've basically been fighting this fight alone, not just in isolation from the council, but alone. So I want to thank you for bringing it to the public ear, because we need every person to understand what is going on, because as you indicated already, the rumors are flying and no one knows who to believe or who is telling the truth. But notwithstanding, there are some things, notwithstanding philosophical differences here on the council. I'm sure there are at least 3 or 4 points on which we all would agree. Number one would be the restoration of full funding. And so just as council sent a letter to the commissioner regarding charter schools, would this council be willing to write a letter to Commissioner Hespy requesting as a council that we restore full funding?
That's why I just said that what do we need to do to
To the legislatures,
get behind the mayor?
more than the commissioner, to the legislatures in the front office in Trenton, the commissioner is not going to be able to. He can advocate for it, but he can't do anything.
That's why we said
to the commissioner who will hopefully take it to the governor and the legislators.
Absolutely, we need it. And there have been other people in this fight, so I don't want to say I've been completely alone. Education Law Center has been here. And quietly, there have been a couple of other folks who may not come out publicly and say they're asking to fight for more money for the district, but they are, because they also understand. So the less money the district has, the less money we have to give out. That's just the reality. So everybody's going to be affected. And soon, there are going to be some charters that may be closed, that have to be closed in this situation. And then the question becomes, who is going to make those decisions and why, and which ones are going to get hurt by this? So this is something that a boat that everybody is in. And you can't let 2 or 3 people stir up the pot and create all this kind of nonsense and confusion in our city, when ultimately, there are a bunch of community charters in this city now who never get an opportunity to expand.
Mm-hmm. Any more comments from anyone? If not, thank you.
You're welcome.